This is TVC News Hour. I am Azeezat Olaoluwa. The top stories. Senate President Bukola Saraki and Kwara Governor Abdul Fattah Ahmed dumped the APC for the PDP. President Muhammadu Buhari emerges chairman of the ECOWAS. Court dismisses 15 billion naira corruption case against former Sokoto State Governor Atahiru Bafarawa. Outside Nigeria, former Trump aide Paul Manafort faces charges in first trial of Russia probe. And in sports, 21st African Senior Athletics Championship lights up Asaba in Delta State. Details coming up. Thank you for joining us. Senate President Bukola Saraki and Kwara State Governor Abdul Fattah Ahmed have officially dumped the All Progressives Congress for the People's Democratic Party. Saraki announced his defection on his Twitter handle and also released a statement personally signed by him. Governor Ahmed, in his statement by his senior special assistant on media, Muhyiddin Akorede, said he defected after consultations with his people. Supporters of Saraki are already jubilating after hearing the news with the burning of broom. That's the symbol of the APC. Now, the move by the duo had long been expected after the defection of other senators and House of Representatives members from the state. Justice Bello Abbas of Sokoto State High Court has dismissed a 15 billion naira corruption case against former governor of Sokoto State, Atahiru Bafarawa, and 3 others. Delivering his judgment, Justice Abbas noted that the prosecutor of the EFCC had not shown the court that every ingredient of the count charges have been established before presenting them to the court. He says hearsay evidences are not acceptable in court, stressing that the evidences to be presented are those of the witnesses and written statements of accused persons.
Well, one thing that I thank the court for standing firm. The Honorable the Chief Judge who handled this case has been very, very firm. He has been very courageous. He stood his ground because he has sworn to do justice without fear of favor, affection, or ill will.
To have been vindicated. And also to thank Allah, when I was arrested about 10 years ago, we were together with President Buhari when we were holding a meeting at Sheraton Hotel, and then I was arrested together with him. And he was the first person to say that Bafara is not a thief, and he will never be a thief. Alhamdulillah, he too have been vindicated for what he said.
A high court in Owerri has stopped the swearing-in of Callistus Ekenze as the new deputy governor of Imo State, where the court ruling came in on Tuesday morning, just as Ekenze was about to be sworn in. Imo State Governor Rochas Okorocha had nominated Ekenze as his deputy after the impeachment of Eze Madumere. Imo State Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice says government's attention had been drawn to the interim order stopping the Chief Judge of the state, Pascal Nadi, from swearing in the new deputy governor. Well, according to him, the state government would quickly take necessary steps to vacate the order as quickly as possible. A federal high court sitting in Lagos has dismissed the no-case submission suit filed by former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kalu, ordering him to enter his defense in the case instituted against him by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Justice Muhammad Idris, who gave this order, also attended to the case of money laundering and fraud brought against the senator representing Delta North Senatorial District, that's Peter Nwamboshi, by the EFCC. Details in this report.
Former governor of Abia State, Orji Uzor Kalu, is being prosecuted on a 39-count charge of fraud to the tune of 7.9 billion naira. The former governor had contended that he had no case to answer after the prosecuting team closed its case. But Justice Muhammad Idris ruled that Orji Uzor Kalu and others surely have a case to answer.
Notwithstanding the ruling made by Court of Appeal and Supreme Court, their judgment on whether there is sufficient evidence against them, they still repeated the same application here after the closure of the prosecution's case. So the court now said there is a case for him to answer. So the next stage we are going into now is the defense.
We are surprised to hear this morning the judge saying that certain exhibits and evidence linked him to the case. But be that as it may, like I said, we'll go back, obtain a copy of the ruling which was just read. I think by tomorrow we should have a copy. We'll study it, and if it is something that we should appeal against, I assure you that we'll appeal against it.
The matter was adjourned to the 10th of September when Azeezat Olaoluwa is expected to open his defense. On the matter between the EFCC and Senator Peter Nwaobochi, the bone of contention is if Justice Muhammad Idris, who has just been promoted to the Court of Appeal, should continue to hear the case or hands off after a fiat issued by the President of the Court of Appeal.
This is the first time a defendant is anxious for his matter to be handled quickly, because as far as concerned, he has no skeleton in his cupboard. But he believes that the court will do the needful in ensuring that justice is not slaughtered at the altar of mischief.
EFCC is not trying to delay this matter. If we were trying to delay the matter, we would not have called 2 witnesses and tendered 30 exhibits in just one sitting and just a few days after arraignment.
The matter was adjourned till the 1st of August 2018.
President Muhammadu Buhari has been elected as new chairman of the Authority of Heads of State and Government of the Economic Community of West African States, that's ECOWAS. But this was at the 53rd Ordinary Session of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government in Lomé, Togo. In his acceptance remarks, President Buhari, who commended his colleagues for his election, noted that he did not offer himself for the post. He, however, promised to deliver on peace, security, good governance and socio-economic development of the sub-region and also take the organization to greater heights. You're watching TVC News Hour. We'll go on a short break now and return in a moment with more stories. Stay with us. You're watching TVC News Hour. Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, says fake news stands as a possible threat to the credibility of the 2019 general election. The minister disclosed this while receiving a delegation of the Voice of America in his Abuja office. He added that fake news contributes negatively to insecurity and urged media outlets to desist from spreading fake news, which poses a huge threat to Nigeria's peace and democracy.
The greatest challenge the entire world is facing today is actually fake news. And even the BBC reported that the herdsmen, farmers clashes, and even other conflicts in Nigeria in particular have been fueled largely by fake news. So the problem we're going to face in this election that I explained when we met informally, I think will be how the fake news phenomenon is consuming the entire country.
We have 240 million viewers, listeners, and readers, and of those, 1/3 live on this continent. And of that group, Nigeria makes up our largest audience in English and in Hausa. And we think we hopefully play an important role here because Voice of America provides around the world fair, objective, neutral, and fact-based information.
Election is coming. We like to cover the election. Last year we had the opportunity to cover that historic election, a peaceful transition of power, a transparent, free election, and that has been disseminated not only in Nigeria, throughout the continent in 50 languages. Because we thought democracy in action should be also a lesson to the rest of Africa.
Well, Nigerian women have agreed to support each other and vote for women aspiring for political offices in the upcoming 2019 elections. Now, they believe active involvement of Nigerian women in politics would enable the country achieve all its development goals, including the SDGs. TVC News' Maria Olashende reports.
Ahead of the 2019 general elections, those women aspirants, high-level decision makers, female politicians, broadcasters and CEOs say they are more determined to work together and ensure they get key positions. They are no longer satisfied at gaining entry into governance at the low levels, but are now determined to aim higher, possibly even for the #1 position of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Having a meeting of women aspirants of this nature is critical, and to be able to strategize and begin to form their agenda for the political battles ahead.
Without the participation of women in all parts of society, including in the highest political offices, we are holding ourselves back. We need the participation of women, the talents of women, as a key tool in building our nations.
Our history is replete with legendary stories of women in politics, like such as Efunseto Aniwura, the Iyalode of Ibadan, Moremi, the legendary life of Ife, the Queen Amina of Zaria, and of course the famous Aba women's riot. What about Bere Olufunlayo Ransom Kuti? She fought her number to stand still because they're asking women to pay taxes.
For us to have more women in politics, first and foremost, we need to support ourselves, irrespective of party affiliation. It's not possible that every party in my locality will field a woman for a particular position. So where that is not the case, we expect all the women in that locality to support the particular woman.
Those women aspirants are also encouraged to get involved in grassroots politics, as well as ensure more women get their PVCs, permanent voters card.
You don't just wake up overnight and say you want to be chairman or you want to be member House of Assembly. What have you shown? What have you done to help in our little problems before you now ask for the opportunity to serve?
People are going to vote for people, not a party anymore. It's going to be an issue of who is this person, where is that person coming from, what has that person got to offer us. Oyo State people, we are very brilliant, we are very smart. We keep things inside us, if we'll be surprised in 2019 what we will deliver to you.
This meeting is an avenue to talk, to strategize, and to begin to look at the next steps in terms of women, more women winning their primaries and becoming candidates of their political parties.
As they work together ahead of 2019 elections, they are determined to improve on the low participation of women in both elective and appointive positions and ensure that the recommended 35% national gender policy affirmative action is achieved. Maria Olashende, TVC News, Abuja.
The federal government, as part of its efforts to reduce youth unemployment, is partnering with the African Development Bank. Now, the partnership is designed to engage stakeholders in a roundtable discussion on youth employment and skills development in the country. Helen Osamide Akins reports.
According to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, the unemployment and underemployment rate in the country escalated from 37.2% to 40% in the second quarter of 2017. Things got worse for the youth, especially those in the age bracket of 15 to 35, which is about 52.65% of the population. The federal government, in its efforts to reverse the trend, had entered into a partnership with the African Development Bank to co-host a public-private roundtable on youth unemployment and skills development. The forum seeks to mobilize the private sector and spur investment with a view to reverse the current high rate of unemployment in the country. The program is planned to have large private sector participation due to the high potential by that sector for job creation.
Although Nigerian youths have been described as enterprising, hardworking, innovative, yet a recent record of 18.8% unemployment rate reported for the country by the NBA shows that there is a disconnect in the capacity to translate these attributes to gainful employment opportunities and thriving enterprises for wealth creation and sustainable development.
The teeming youth population requires us no other option than to accelerate the creation and productive jobs as a matter of extreme urgency.
Not the job of government to create jobs. The role of government is to create the enabling environment for jobs to be created. And really, it's a role of our private sector and the various our private sector really to create the jobs, and also for us to facilitate entrepreneurship. Just like the ADB, the senior manager from ADB was saying, the reality is our population, our youth population grows exponentially. And so the challenge we then have is really to see how we create systems to facilitate entrepreneurship for our youths. That must go hand in hand with also being able to make them employable for the market, the labor market that's largely driven by the private sector.
The event followed the inauguration of a multi-sectoral task team to work with the consultants and enrich the process from different perspectives towards achieving an all-inclusive success. Participants expect that establishment of the forum will go a long way in addressing the numerous challenges of unemployment in Nigeria. Helen Usamede Akins, TVC News, Abuja.
The Nigerian Army says communities in Zamfara State and those around Beniguari and Funtua in Kaduna and Katsina states will soon have no cause to be afraid. Now, it says it is enhancing intelligence and strategy in troops deployment to forestall further killing of innocent Nigerians in those areas. Chief of Army Staff Tukur Buratai disclosed this to journalists while on an operational visit to some communities in Kaduna State. Desema Kendi has the rest of the story.
Very senior military officers at the Nigerian Army School of Artillery in Kachia, Kaduna State. They are led by Chief of Army Staff Tukur Yusuf Buratai to ongoing projects and giving briefs accordingly. Buratai took special interest in the armory, asking several questions. The engineers all appeared convincing in their presentations.
The machines here, I'm told, are in good condition. Many of them look pretty old, but I'm told the older, the better for the enemy.
The Army Chief and his team then proceeded to the hinterlands to visit communities, many of which had suffered attacks. He paid courtesy visits to the traditional rulers, appreciating them for being peace builders. He then proceeded to the Army's forward operation base in Kafanchan to address his troops. Buratai warned them to remain apolitical as the election year inches closer. He noted that more than 200 bikes would soon be given to them, and the base accorded the compliments of a battalion.
We just acquired some of the equipment needed by the battalion, which we will soon deploy them fully in this area.
But journalists sought to know when lasting peace will return to troubled communities around Beniguari in Kaduna State, Funtua in Katsina State, and Zamfara State. The Army Chief revealed that they've taken intelligence gathering a notch higher and improved their troop deployment strategy and efficiency. He believed this approach will better the lot of the people.
Rest assured that place will also be stabilized very soon. We are adjusting the deployment in that area, and we are getting the relevant platforms to ensure that we get all the needed intelligence to be able to deal with those issues in Zamfara, Kaduna, and so on.
You are aware of the...
President Buhari recently ordered the deployment of hundreds of troops to Zamfara. With these developments, many hope the bloodletting would end sooner than later. Tessem Akende, TVC News, Kafanchan.
Now, why travel abroad for medical check when it can be done for less than $500,000 naira in the world-class Bayelsa Diagnostic Center? Well, that's the question former President Olusegun Obasanjo is asking Nigerians after getting a clean bill of health from professionals at the state-of-the-art facility in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State. Ovietimi George reports.
you are almost in an El Dorado. And I was just saying to the governor that if he wakes up one day and finds that I'm here with little or no notice, it's because I think there's something here to come for in terms of the facilities, particularly medical facilities.
That was February the 16th when Nigeria's former president Olusegun Obasanjo inaugurated the world-class Bayelsa Diagnostic Center. 5 months after, Obasanjo is in the state again, only this time to keep a date with the doctors as earlier promised. After inspecting equipment and undergoing routine tests at the VIP wing of the Bayelsa Specialist Hospital, Nigeria's former president proceeded to the world-class Bayelsa Diagnostic Center at Ingbi Road for another round of routine checks.
They are experts and trained in Nigeria and trained abroad who are here and who have the machines and the machines that work. The Americans, they probably have the cutting edge of medical science and technology. What you can get there, you can get here. And it may be of interest to you to know that the doctor says my head is correct.
On Wednesday, March the 7th, 2018, the House of Representatives disclosed that Nigerians spend over $1 billion annually on outbound medical tourism. Ex-President Obasanjo wants Nigerians to save money by coming to Bayelsa State for medical checks.
My receipt for the process I've gone through is 350,000 naira. Now, but 350,000 naira, what I have gone through here today, test will not be anything less than $25,000 in America. That will be going into millions of naira. So it's cheap and it's effective, and you get the result immediately. I've got my result.
Doctors gave him a clean bill of health.
The doctor said that I am as fit as a fiddle.
Ovieteme George, TVC News, Yenagoa, Bayelsa State.
Well, concerted efforts are to be made by the Nigerian government and its citizens in order to win the war against climate change. With this was the resolution of various speakers at the United Nations monthly roundtable held in Lagos. The focus of discussion was climate change, which is the 13th of the Sustainable Development Goals. Various speakers advocate that all hands must be on deck in combating the climatic problem in the country. They also advise that it should be an agenda that must be considered by Nigerians when exercising their voting rights.
Climate change is already affecting Nigeria. It is affecting people adversely. We see the expanding of the desert to many parts of Nigeria. We see the problems caused by that in terms of livelihoods, people moving, farmers, herders, clashes, and so on.
This damage has affected our vegetation very seriously. We've lost a lot of forest, and the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere has increased very, very remarkably.
Basically, the goal is to reach the net zero carbon footprint by 2030. That is where all industrialized companies are to work towards achieving that goal, whereby the amount of carbon being produced while generating it becomes zero, negligible.
The utmost necessity to safeguard the environment. People call it environment, we call it our life support system. Very, very, very soon they'll use the two tools, the smartphone and the voting card, to ensure that their interests are enshrined in those who are serving them in government. And I emphasize the word serving them in government. And if you don't serve us well, we use this to take you out.
Outside Nigeria, a former chairman of U.S. President Donald Trump's 2016 campaign, Paul Manafort, is facing charges in court that he hid tens of millions of dollars and in Ukraine in offshore accounts and defrauded banks for loans. Now, the tax and bank fraud trial in a Virginia federal court represents the first test of special counsel Robert Mueller's ability to win a conviction of a former Trump aide, with 3 other aides, including Manafort's longtime business partner Rick Gates, have already pleaded guilty and are cooperating with Mueller's probe. Prosecutors are seeking to provide details of Manafort's work for a pro-Russian political party in Ukraine, raising the possibility that new information about his Russian connections could emerge. Manafort has filed a motion to have details of that work excluded from trial. And that wraps it up on TVC News Hour. Remember, you can get updates on our website. It's tvcnews.tv. You can also get updates and react to any story on all our social media platforms using the handle @TVC News NG. Thank you for watching. I am Azeezat Olaoluwa. Bye for now.